Revealed. My son's $53 million fortune led to surprising betrayal, but his change of heart was touching. Linda stood in the kitchen, hands trembling around a chipped coffee mug. The bitterness of yesterday's brew barely registering as the news blared from the small television in the corner. Jake's tech company went public, making him a multi-millionaire overnight, the anchor exclaimed. The words churned like a storm inside her, crashing against her hopes, fears, and resentments. This wasn't just about money. It was about the estrangement, the years apart, and the life lessons that suddenly felt irrelevant. With her heart racing, she thought back to the sacrifices she'd made, nights spent working overtime shifts as a nurse, hustling to provide a better life. And now, after all that, here came Jake, back in town with a glory that felt alien to her. What would he think of her? What would the town say? She envisioned Sarah's scornful glance, the envy twisting her friend's expressions as they navigated the mundane lives Linda had fought to escape. Jake's newfound riches could turn the already turbulent waters into a raging sea of accusations that she had failed him. The door creaked open that afternoon, and there was Jake, all sharp suits and flashy confidence. "Hey, Mom," he called, but it sounded distant, like he was already somewhere else, far from the love and warmth of their modest home. Linda felt the pressure of unspoken words fill the air between them, pride and fear mingling in a shaky breath. "Jake, it's good to see you," she managed, her voice tinged with uncertainty, wondering if the son she knew was buried beneath the surface of this polished stranger. "You won't believe the toys I've got now," he said, eyes glittering with excitement as he launched into tales of luxury cars and expensive parties. Each word twisted a knot deeper into her stomach, igniting a whirlwind of unease. The more he spoke, the more she wanted to scream. "Is this really you?" Could he see how detached he seemed? Did he know how much he was abandoning their roots? Before she could wrap her mind around it, that nagging feeling compelled her to confront him, her heart pounding in her ears. "Jake," she said, her voice quavering, "don't you see? This isn't who you are." Desperation clawed at her throat as their eyes locked, his bright facade flickering momentarily. "Mom, you don't understand," he exclaimed, frustration lacing his words. "I'm just trying to find my footing in this wild world." Linda recognized that hurt, buried beneath layers of bravado, and a part of her hesitated, was she pushing him away or trying to save him? "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Deep breaths filled the silence afterward, and Jake seemed suddenly fragile, almost exposed. "I thought money would bring happiness," he confessed, his facade crumbling. "But I've never felt more alone." Linda's heart twisted painfully, recognizing the haunting familiarity of loneliness that echoed in her own life from years of working. The weight of his vulnerability ignited a spark within her. Could they navigate the ruins of their estrangement? With each glance, questions flooded the room. Could they rebuild what had shattered under the immense pressure of ambition and wealth? A flicker of hope illuminated the darkened space between them, yet doubt clung to every corner, leaving her aching for resolution that felt just out of reach. Linda realized time was slipping away, and their connection was hanging by a thread, one that wealth might sever forever. How deep did Jake's wealth run into his soul, and would he ever return to that boy she nurtured, who could transform material riches into lasting happiness? Desperation welled within her like a rising tide. Would it sweep them apart, or carry them toward reconciliation? The storm of emotions hung heavily as Linda braced herself for the ultimate confrontation. The air in the room thickened as Linda watched Jake's expression shift from defiance to uncertainty. The bravado began to falter under the weight of their unspoken history, revealing glimpses of the boy she had raised, the dreams they once shared. That moment of vulnerability ignited a long-buried fire within Linda, a resolve that had dimmed over the years but never fully extinguished. "Jake," she began, choosing her words carefully, "this is more than just wealth. It's about who you want to be." She felt a surge of courage as she spoke, each word designed to penetrate the walls he had built around himself. You've achieved so much, but none of it will fill that empty space you're feeling inside. Jake's brows furrowed, the lines on his forehead deepening as he processed her response. You have no idea what it's like, Mom. Everyone expects me to be someone I'm not. This money, this fame, his voice trembled with frustration, it suffocates me. Linda could sense his inner turmoil, a tumultuous wave of confusion pushing against the shore of their conversation. There it was, an echo of the loneliness she had felt when she had buried herself in her work, hoping to provide, while escaping from her own depths. I may not understand everything, Jake, but I know what it's like to feel trapped. Money doesn't change those feelings. It amplifies them. He paced the room, his shoulders heavy with the burdens he carried. Each step mirrored the conflict within, a battle between the person his wealth demanded he become, and the son she had never stopped loving. What do you want me to do? He said, the plea etched into his voice. Do you want me to reject it all? Just walk away? No. Linda replied quickly, but then slowed her heartbeat, deliberately recalling her own journey. What I want is for you to find balance. To remember who you are at your core. Maybe instead of just showing off what you have, you can focus on what good you can do with it. Does that make sense? His silence was deafening as he grappled with her suggestion. Linda's own mind raced, reflecting on the missed opportunities to guide him all those years. Could she, too, step back into a teaching role, despite the years of estrangement? I've always wanted to make an impact, Mom, Jake whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. But every time I try, it feels like I'm stuck in quicksand. What's the point of giving when it doesn't feel genuine? Linda took a step closer, her heart eager to bridge the gap. What if you start small? Use your abilities, your insights, to help others just like you. You have the means to turn your experience into strength, a way to heal both yourself and those around you. As her words hung in the air, she could see a flicker of understanding in his eyes. The pulse of their shared aspirations was there, promising him a chance to navigate a route that transcended the allure of mere wealth. The once wounded connection began to weave tentative strands of hope back together, the kind that neither money nor fame could dissolve. But doubt lingered like a shadow, feeding off the past. Would he truly be able to reject the superficial demands of his new life? Or would he lose himself in the very lifestyle he had aspired to embrace? What if I can't? Jake's voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability hiding beneath his bravado. Linda's resolve hardened. Then you fight to find your true self. You don't have to do this alone. I'm here now. We can face this together. In that moment, her conviction illuminated the path ahead. Yet, just as she began to sense the potential for reconciliation, a chilling reminder of their fractured past crept in. A text alert flashed on Jake's phone, a message from a high-profile investor. A reminder of the temptations waiting to pull him further from her grasp. As Jake's gaze fell onto the screen, Linda felt the weight of anticipation wrap around them. The storm clouds of uncertainty loomed larger, ready to engulf whatever fragile connection they had begun to repair. Would he answer the call of fame, or would he choose to forge a new identity? Alongside her, Linda braced herself. The decision lay ahead, hovering in the air like a taut string about to snap. Jake's fingers hovered over the screen, the light illuminating his face in an unflattering, jagged glow. The name of the investor pulled him like a magnet, a constant reminder of everything he had fought against. The electronic buzz echoed with temptation, strong enough to drown out Linda's voice, which now felt like a whispering breeze in a roaring storm. Jake, don't let that define you, she pressed, taking a cautious step forward. You have the chance to create something real. The girl you met last week, what did her story mean to you? His eyes flickered momentarily as memories surged. He hesitated, his heart coming alive in the recollection of her aspirations. She wanted to start a charity for young artists. It's important, you know? Then use that, Linda encouraged, her voice firm with the conviction that had long resided in her. You know exactly what you need to do to reclaim your life. Don't let fear trap you. Allow your passions to lead you forward. Her assertion pierced through the mental fog that plagued him. The sensation of being caught in quicksand transitioned into one of clarity, as though someone had cut away the vines suffocating him. But just as that realization began to bloom, self-doubt crowded his thoughts. What if my efforts aren't enough? What if they reject me for not being the Jake they expect? Linda watched him wrestle with those fears. Each flinch of his body resonated with her own memories of standing on the precipice of change, uncertain yet yearning. You must realize that your authenticity is your greatest asset. It's not about living for others. It's about being true to yourself. But what if they don't see my intentions? Jake struggled to articulate the battle within, the very existence of his identity threatened by the expectations surrounding him. What if pretending to be that person is my best option? The challenge hung heavy in the air, and Linda felt the tension draw tighter. Could she imbue him with the strength she had struggled to find in herself? If you pretend to be someone else, you'll never find happiness. Instead of chasing approval, chase your own dreams. Her words landed like a bomb on a wound, igniting a flicker of hope within him. But he still did not fully believe he could do it. I could build a platform, maybe host some workshops, but will it actually matter? Jake questioned, doubt still bleeding through. No one can take away the power of your voice or the dreams that inspire you. She replied, firm and unwavering. Your worth is inherent, not dictated by wealth or fame. Start as a mentor, a guide for those still trapped like you. Your experiences are valuable. For a fleeting moment, clarity surfaced in Jake's eyes, but then the phone buzzed again, breaking the moment like glass shattering on the floor. He reached for it, the battle in him raging anew. Linda's heart sank as she recognized a familiar twitch in his jaw resistance, just before surrendering to the allure of easy affirmation. Jake, fighting the urge means redefining your path, she implored. In that process, you might just discover something beautiful about yourself, the man you always wanted to be. As he stared at the screen, the world draped in possibilities flickered within him. Conflicted, he drew in a breath, the choices before him fracturing the fragile reality he had known. Jake's gaze darted back toward Linda, everything he held evaluated in that moment. I'm terrified, Mom, he finally confessed, vulnerability cracking through the defenses he had fought to maintain. The admission turned her resolve into a lifeline stretching out between them. Fear is the beginning of courage, Linda asserted. Take it one step, one moment at a time. The journey to yourself is paved with those fears. Jake's decision loomed above him, hovering like a storm cloud in the bright sunlight he longed to step into. Was he ready to confront his fears and share his authentic self with the world? As he turned to Linda, a new determination flickered behind his uncertain gaze. But the moment shattered again as the investor's name blinked insistently. Would he finally abandon the spotlight for self-discovery or remain shackled, a prisoner to the projection of another's dreams? Jake hesitated, the world poised for his next move, a poignant decision that could either reclaim his identity or plunge him deeper into the void. The phone buzzed again, the sound slicing through the tension in the room. Jake felt the device lead him away from the path Linda encouraged. It was so easy to slip back into the familiarity of expectation, which mercilessly weighed on him. He turned it over, staring at the luminous screen that reflected a future shaped by someone else's dreams. The investor's name glared at him as though it mocked his internal struggle, taunting him with thoughts of financial security and societal applause. Yet in the midst of it all, a different voice rose within him, one that whispered of authenticity, creativity, and passion. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to think clearly. What had the girl taught him? Her earnest wishes for aspiring artists echoed in his mind, illuminating a stark contrast to his own hesitations. Could he really align himself with something so valuable? The notion of fostering artistic talent felt both foreign and exhilarating. Jake, Linda's voice broke through once more, gentle yet insistent. What do you truly want? He turned to her, his heart racing with the weight of the question. Want? The simplicity of that word suddenly felt insurmountable. Was it success akin to his father's expectations? Or was it something deeper, more personal? I want to make a difference, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. In that moment he felt both free and chained. The fear he had clung to was slowly loosening its grip. Concrete thoughts began to evolve within his mind. Perhaps launching that mentorship program, or those workshops, was not just an idea to fill time, it could be a vessel for cultural transformation. Jake envisioned a community of young artists unearthing their potential, finding their voices amidst the noise of societal pressure. And maybe he could be part of that revelation, not as a figurehead driven by financial gain, but as a guide shaped by shared experience. Yet as optimism churned within him, so did his familiar apprehensions. What if he failed? What if it all crumbled into dust? Chilling thoughts shadowed his excitement, threatening to drag him back into the depths of self-doubt. But what if I can't even help others? He argued, shaking his head with disbelief. Then learn alongside them, Linda replied, her reassuring words encouraging him to embrace imperfection as part of the journey. You won't have all the answers, and that's okay. Start small, but let your heart lead the way. Authenticity can create waves. Her unwavering belief in him fueled a fire he hadn't fully recognized was there. The thought of facing down his fears now felt monumental, yet strangely invigorating. The pulse of the city beyond their window stirred something inside him, an echo of dormant dreams coming to life beneath the surface. Jake drew a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision solidify in his chest. He couldn't ignore the urge to break free from the relentless voice of expectation. The notion of becoming a mentor, finding purpose, and reclaiming his identity became electric in its potential. Okay, he finally said, almost surprised by his own conviction. I want to start that program. The realization settled as a calm conviction, radiating warmth throughout his entire being. It will matter, he added, as both affirmation and challenge. Linda's smile mirrored the relief swelling within him. Then let us do it. You have the strength, and together, we'll figure out the details. Start small, like you said. There's no rush. But a sudden doubt flickered in the recesses of his mind. How would he navigate this new course, particularly with the weight of his past still looming overhead? The investor's call was an ever-present shadow now threatening to overshadow his newfound resolve. As they discussed potential ideas, the call to authenticity felt like climbing a mountain that had no clear path. The phone buzzed one last time, shattering the tranquility they had forged. Jake's heart sank momentarily, convinced it had to be the investor. As he glanced at the screen just moments from pressing answer, a thought germinated in the core of his mind. Was he finally ready to face those who valued his worth only by his previous life choices? The air thickened with anticipation, and Jake felt the pull of the moment. Did he dare to challenge the expectations that had framed his identity for so long? Before he could disable the call, everything hung in a fragile balance. Would he step into the treacherous landscape of his worth or retreat into the shadows and let them define him? The next move would either solidify his resolve or remind him of how easily he could slip away. Jake hesitated before answering, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on his chest. The light of the screen illuminated his conflicted expression, a reminder of the stark choices laid before him. In an instant, he felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins, pushing him to take action. He pressed the button, accepting the call, ready to confront his past. Hello, he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil swirling inside. Jake, it's Roger. The familiar voice of the investor pierced through the tension. I've been trying to reach you about your proposal. I think we can make something huge happen together. Jake's stomach tightened. The ease with which Roger expressed desire for collaboration contrasted sharply against his present conviction. But the allure of acceptance and financial backing was palpable. Would he allow this conversation to sway him back into a life of expectations? Roger, I appreciate the interest, but I'm not sure I'm the right fit for this anymore, Jake said, surprising himself with his assertiveness. Each word was a small act of rebellion against the ghosts of his past, the very ghosts he was intent on exorcising. Silence followed, thick and tense, piercing through the remnants of Jake's doubt. What do you mean? Roger pressed, the incredulity evident. You're going to throw away an opportunity like this? It's a once-in-a-lifetime deal. Those words struck like a bell, reverberating in Jake's mind. A once-in-a-lifetime deal. What did that even mean to him now? Wasn't he each day a chance to forge something genuine and impactful? He had stepped away from the allure of financial gain to seek authenticity. How could he compromise that integrity now? I'm not throwing it away. I'm just choosing to invest differently, Jake replied, a newfound conviction solidifying within his voice. He could feel Linda's supportive presence behind him as though she were propelling him forward. I want to mentor young artists and help them discover their paths. That's where my heart lies. Mentorship? Seriously? Roger scoffed. That's not going to make you a success in the ways that matter. Don't let fleeting ideals blind you to reality. With each word from Roger, a flicker of doubt emerged, but Jake swiftly extinguished it. He realized that while Roger's words held an element of truth, they were shackled to the notion of success that had suffocated him for years. Success defined by monetary value was a life he wanted to move away from. I'll build something that matters, Roger. Something real, he affirmed, his tone unwavering. The call ended abruptly, a wall slamming down that shattered any lingering connection to his old life. With the phone still in hand, he felt a strange mix of relief and turmoil. The aftershocks of that conversation rippled through him. He was unshackling himself from his past, but the anxiety about moving into this new phase of his life remained. Let us get to work, Linda said, her enthusiasm sharpening the focus in Jake's gaze. The energy in the room shifted. Desperation gave way to resolve. They brainstormed ideas, outlines of what workshops could look like, how to create a structure that would empower young artists to express themselves authentically. However, a persistent uneasiness lingered. Building this program felt daunting, and in those quiet moments when doubt slithered back, he wondered if he had the capacity to guide others while grappling with his own uncertainties. Could he truly lead when he felt so much still hung in the balance? As they outlined schedules and potential themes, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that there was more he needed to uncover within himself, more vulnerabilities to face and experiences to acknowledge. Those lessons from his past, painful as they were, could also hold the keys to honest mentorship. I think we need to incorporate our own stories, Jake proposed. We can share our struggles. It might make it feel less isolating for the kids. Linda looked at him, her eyes shining with agreement, but he took a deep breath as possibilities began unfolding before him. But, deep down, Jake couldn't ignore a looming question. What revelations awaited him as he navigated this new terrain? And would he be prepared to confront the echoes of his past that demanded attention? That uncertainty hung heavily in the air, posing an intricate challenge he was about to face. The time had come for Jake not just to create, but to confront everything he was and everything he feared. Jake awoke with the morning light streaming through his window, illuminating the remnants of the restless night he had spent wrestling with his thoughts. The decision to forge a new path echoed in his mind, a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension pulsing through him. Today was not just another day. It marked the beginning of an all-consuming journey that promised to reveal parts of himself he had long buried. He brewed coffee, the rich aroma blending with his swirling thoughts. As he prepared for his first session with the aspiring artists, his mind oscillated between excitement and doubt. How could he impart wisdom when he himself was still navigating uncharted waters? The notion of vulnerability flickered in his mind, a tantalizing prospect he both craved and feared. Arriving at the workspace, Jake was struck by the stark contrast between the colorful walls of the studio and the shadows lingering in his heart. He set up chairs in a circle, attempting to create an atmosphere of openness, but even the arrangement felt artificial. Each piece of furniture positioned just so echoed his struggle to maintain control amidst the chaos of his thoughts. When the young artists began arriving, their energy was palpable, and for a fleeting moment, Jake felt a wave of hope wash over him. They were brimming with ambition, much like he once had been, and perhaps, just perhaps, he could help channel that into something transformative. Welcome everyone, Jake said, his voice firm yet warm. Today, we're going to explore not just your artistry, but also who you are as individuals. Their eyes widened, anticipation igniting the room. Yet as he spoke, he felt a disconnect, as if a faint echo of his former self lingered just beyond reach. That he initiated a conversation about their aspirations. Each artist shared their dreams and fears, stories unfurling like petals. Although he felt himself drifting away from the surface of their experience. They spoke of the pressure to succeed, of creative blocks and judgments. All these resonated deeply, stirring an uncomfortable awareness in Jake. Their stories mirrored his own pain. Suddenly, a hand was raised. Maya, a soulful painter with ink-stained fingers and an earnest expression. Jake, what made you want to help us? She asked, her gaze piercing through his facade. The question sent him reeling. Here he was advocating for openness, yet he had shied away from exposing his motivations completely. He hesitated. I want to give back what I didn't have. To learn from my mistakes. The confession tasted bitter, laced with a hint of regret. But the truth of it felt liberating. Maya's brow furrowed. But aren't you scared? Scared you might not know how. The vulnerability in her words struck a chord, stirring something deep within him. It wasn't just about imparting wisdom. It was about embracing his imperfections alongside theirs. Jake took a deep breath, sensing the rising tension and the necessity of truth. Every day, I'm confronted with doubt. But I've learned that it's in facing those doubts that we find our strength. The room filled with silence, the weight of honesty hanging in the air. He could see their faces soften, the walls they had built slowly beginning to crack. After the session, amidst shared laughter and discussions around their artwork, Jake realized he was fostering a community. Not just of mentorship, but of mutual vulnerability. He knew now that he could guide others, not despite his fears, but because of them. But with this newfound clarity came a gnawing thought. What if there were deeper aspects of his past he had yet to confront? What layers remained hidden that could prove vital in his journey? In the stillness of the evening, as he reflected on the day's discoveries, Jake sensed that much finally lay ahead. The pivotal question was emerging, demanding attention. Would he be ready to unveil the most difficult parts of his story and risk everything he had begun to build? As the shadows lengthened around him, Jake understood that to lead was to risk revealing the truest measure of oneself. The next step awaited him quietly, both terrifying and promising. That night, sleep eluded Jake. Staring at the ceiling, he ruminated on the day's successes and self-revelations. Their faces lingered in his mind, hopeful, raw, and filled with a potential he feared he had long lost. The question Maya had posed haunted him, echoing through the silence. Aren't you scared? He wrestled with memories that scratched at the surface, threats that loomed like dark clouds. Each recollection demanded acknowledgement, nudging him to confront aspects of his past he had buried deep beneath layers of self-preservation. What if unearthing those memories could unlock something transformative, both for him and his students? In the early hours, a pulse of determination surged through him. The studio became his sanctuary, a canvas where he must explore his own narrative. He tossed aside the superficial thoughts of mentorship and focused on authenticity. Creativity thrived on transparency, he reminded himself. Every artist must confront their demons to create any real art. The following session stood before him, a blank slate of opportunity. Jake initiated it with a simple question. What does vulnerability mean to you in your art? It was a question he desperately needed to explore himself. The responses varied. Some spoke of fear and exposure, while others embraced vulnerability as a space for connection and authenticity. Each answer layered complexity onto Jake's understanding. Yet even as they delved into their intimate struggles, he sensed the weight of his unresolved issues pushing against his rib cage. A knowledge yet unshared. Can we try an exercise? Jake proposed, his heart racing with the thrill of pushing boundaries. I want each of you to create something that embodies your biggest fear as an artist. The room buzzed with the nervous energy of challenge, and he felt a part of himself, his unexpressed fears beginning to rise from the depths that as they began to work. Jake roamed the space, observing their textures, colors, and expressions. Accumulated tension released like a spring, and suddenly, amidst the vibrant strokes and scribbles, he felt emboldened to confront his own fears. Seated at his easel, he allowed instinct to guide him. He painted with urgency, each stroke echoing the tumult of his past. The moments of rejection, self-doubt, and anger that had shaped him. The colors twisted and turned into a whirlpool of chaotic emotion, a representation of his artistic identity that had once been paralyzed by perfection. Then came a shocking realization. He was not merely creating art, but uncovering a form of catharsis. The pieces began to align. Within that ferment of emotion, he felt the possibility of acceptance. Maybe to lead meant taking risks, to publicly embrace both flaws and strengths. But would acceptance be enough, or were there deeper truths that still needed exposure? When the time drew close for sharing, Jake felt a familiar barrier rise in his chest. It took both courage and vulnerability to invite authentic connection. So he stood at the forefront, clear in purpose. "I'd like to share my piece with you all," he announced, aware of the trepidation that saturated the atmosphere. As he revealed his artwork, an emotional tide swept over him. It was raw, imperfect, and deeply personal, encapsulating reflections he had hidden for years. Their eyes on him felt like a mirror, revealing the weight of his truth, and in that moment, vulnerability expanded the circle of authenticity he had strived to create. Yet, as relief washed over him, doubt crept back, wrapping itself around his spine. What would they think of him once he laid bare his flaws? Would they perceive him as a guide, or just another flawed soul searching for answers? The realization struck that true leadership would test the very foundations of his identity. The challenge loomed larger now. To lead was intrinsically tied to revealing the entirety of oneself. As he left the session, Jake felt the ground beneath him shift. His path was fraught with uncertainty, but within that uncertainty laid potential. The approach of another challenge whispered promises of deeper discovery. What if unveiling the past could lead not only to a personal renaissance, but also transform those he sought to inspire? Could addressing his demons, like those of his students, forge a bond that wove them together in vulnerability and strength? Jake knew he stood on the precipice of something profound. The truth of his past awaited him, shrouded and threatening, yet undeniably magnetic. He sensed that facing this next challenge would alter not just his trajectory, but the very purpose of his journey ahead. The next morning, the soft light of dawn intruded on Jake's restless thoughts. As he sipped his coffee, each tempting aroma of the brew drew him towards a decision that simmered just beneath the surface. He yearned for clarity, a defined path where vulnerability would not just be an exercise in art, but a rallying cry for both himself and his students. With renewed resolve, he returned to the studio, the space now charged with an electric anticipation. Today, he decided, he would not just challenge his students to confront their fears. He would join them fully. The notion of disappointment in himself surfaced again, but he suppressed it with determination. As the session commenced, he spoke with authority, his voice steady. "Vulnerability is not just a theme we explore. It's the bridge between you as artists and me as your guide." As he paced the room, anticipation pulsed around him. "Today, I want us to dig deeper. We're going to face the roots of our struggles together." The murmurs of uncertainty rippled through the group, but Jake was undeterred. "Let us create pieces that don't just reflect fear, but represent what we wish to overcome. I'll start. I plan to share my journey." He saw the spark of engaged interest in their eyes. This was not merely an exercise, it was a reckoning. Jake grabbed a large canvas and set it prominently in front of the group. The blank expanse was a glaring invitation, each corner a potential entrance to darker parts of his psyche. His palms trembled as he prepared his palette, and his thoughts sank deep, traversing into fragmented memories that formed the mosaic of his past. As he positioned himself for creation, a rush of anxiety washed over him. The past always had a way of luring him into the shadows of self-doubt. Yet within that pressure, something exciting flickered. The possibility of transformation. With each brushstroke, Jake painted visible scars, moments of disappointment where he felt he failed himself and others. Layers emerged, ugly and raw. But with each application of color, Jake felt lighter. He allowed the brush to guide him, finding solace and hidden truths within his chaotic strokes. Here, in this shared exploration, vulnerability emerged as an inextricable part of their collective experience. As the session continued, Jake encouraged everyone to speak freely about their creations. Listening to their stories, he felt the components of their struggles echo his own. Yet in their confessions, he discovered an unexpected clarity, one that reinforced his role as mentor while simultaneously humbling him as a learner. Their courage ignited flame within him, pushing him to confront the permanence of doubt in the back of his mind. As Jake finally stood before them with his painting, the tangled masses of emotion now transformed into imagery, he forced himself to confront his greatest fear: that he would never fully translate his truth into the powerful guidance they needed. "I've painted my failures," Jake announced, his heart racing. "And now I want to honor them. Each brushstroke, though painful, has led me to this moment of sharing with you." Their faces held a mixture of awe and understanding, and for the first time, the room felt like a haven of acceptance. In the simplicity of revealing himself, He generously gifted his students the chance to discover the same strength in their narratives. Yet, even as he spoke, the turmoil of the past grabbed at his heels. What if exploring these truths led him down a path he couldn't return from? His sense of purpose pinned him between fear and the courage to unearth his highest potential. Was he prepared to drift in those murky waters? At that moment, a soft voice from the back broke his contemplation. What if those memories are just the beginning of our stories? It was Maya, and her question echoed profound vulnerability, pushing Jake to confront the deeper truth within himself. The session ended, but he knew it wasn't over. There was more to unearth. Little did he know, the very act of confronting his past would unveil surprises he hadn't anticipated. Challenges that would demand not just internal exploration, but might also test the foundations of trust he was building with his students. As he packed away his tools, Jake could feel the stirring of another confrontation. The dialogue was just beginning. What more awaited him in both his past and his present? He took a deep breath, drawing strength from the revelations of the day. The real challenge had yet to unveil itself. Jake left the studio feeling equally invigorated and drained. The weight of the day's revelations hung heavily on him. A reminder of the thin line he walked between guiding others and risking his own emotional stability. As he walked home, he replayed Maya's question in his mind. What if those memories were just the beginning? His thoughts twisted into a spiraling exploration of not only the events that shaped him, but also the shrouded ambitions he had yet to face. He realized he hadn't fully acknowledged the ways in which fear had governed his artistic and personal life. Would illuminating those shadows grant him liberation, or deepen his anxiety? Each step felt laden with dual intentions. To seek healing while bracing himself for the tumultuous truths that lay ahead. That evening, Jake sat before a blank notebook, a stark contrast to the chaos of color he had embraced in the studio. Here, words would force themselves onto the pages, demanding clarity. He felt the familiar dance of self-doubt encroach upon him again, but he pressed forward, pen in hand. The first words flowed as a hesitant trickle. Fear has been my constant companion, he wrote, and with that he unlocked a floodgate of thoughts. He documented instances where fear dictated his artistic choices, the moments he shied away from challenges that would push his creativity's boundaries. Through writing, Jake began to navigate not only his past but also a new layer of vulnerability. Revelations of strength hidden within fear itself. He could sense the shadows of uncertainty lifting, if only slightly. Days passed, and with each class, Jake's openness became a catalyst for bravery among his students. With each session, he found himself sharing experiences that resonated with their struggles, tales woven with threads of resilience. They began to form a web of support together, a tapestry of shared vulnerability that opened up a world of conversations he had never anticipated. But alongside this growth, there was an undercurrent of tension. Jake grappled with the idea that he was becoming too entwined with their problems, to the detriment of his own healing process. He questioned whether he was giving them what they truly needed, or merely projecting his unresolved conflicts onto them. One morning, while reviewing student portfolios, he noticed a recurring theme. Several students had painted imagery reflecting their own fathers and relationships defined by high expectations and fear of failure. The irony struck Jake hard. He had been subconsciously transferring his own paternal issues onto them. It jolted him back to the fragmented memories he had poured onto the canvas. In a moment of clarity, he recognized that confronting these truths could no longer be an abstract exercise. He needed to confront the very real impact of his own family dynamics on his identity as a mentor. It was no longer just about vulnerability, but about acknowledging the foundations upon which he had built his own complex relationship with fear. With the looming realization, he stood at a crossroads. The urge to reach out to his estranged father surged within him, battling with the trepidation of rekindling a fraught relationship. Would this act of bridging old gaps facilitate continuity in his own journey, or would it expose him to renewed hurt? A new challenge rose to the forefront of his mind, demanding resolution. Did he have the courage not just to confront his past, but to seek reconciliation? The strength to face that turning point had never felt more critical. He exhaled slowly, the tension weighing heavily in the air as he prepared to unveil this internal conflict to his students. knowing it might require far more from him than simply laying bare his vulnerabilities. As he entered the studio the next day, he could almost taste the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Would this next step forge an unbroken bond or expose rifts he had yet to recognize? The journey into the unknown awaited him, and there was no turning back. With the upcoming session weighing on his mind, Jake stepped into the studio, inhaling deeply as he let the vibrant energy of his students envelop him. They too were waiting, a sea of anticipation ignited by an unspoken promise of honesty and growth. He could see the spark in their eyes, a reflection of the inspiration and hope they had found in his journey. Today would be different. It had to be. Today, I want us to explore our pasts in a deeper way, Jake began, feeling the pulse of his heart quicken. Together, we're going to confront those shadows that sometimes linger in our lives. He had made his decision overnight. Today wasn't merely about exploration. It was about authentic engagement. The prospect of delving into personal histories now seemed both thrilling and terrifying. They would not only share their fears but also the pain woven through their familial relationships, which undeniably shaped their artistry. I want to take the first step, he announced, holding his breath momentarily. I'm going to share about my own father, and how his expectations have haunted my choices. The room fell silent, expectations stretched tight, each student leaning in as he found his footing amidst shared vulnerability. Jake let the stories pour out, fragmented memories of a father whose relentless pursuit of success left him feeling inadequate. I spent so many years living under his shadow, believing that my worth was tied to approval, and it stifled the artist within me, he said, voice wavering. The room reverberated with a palpable tension, recognizing the duality of pain and relief. By naming the struggle, he had somehow lifted it from the darkness, casting it into the light. This act of sharing felt like unshackling a part of himself he had long confined. It was cathartic. One student, Ella, who almost always remained silent during discussions, raised her hand. I relate to that. My dad expects me to follow in his footsteps too. I worry I'll never be good enough. The connection amplified in the room, resonating as if each of them was dipping a toe into an emotionally charged pool. Students began to speak up, recounting their experiences, the burden of expectations, the desire for approval, and the struggle to carve out identities away from their parents' ambitions. As the stories flowed, Jake felt the atmosphere shift dramatically. All around him, barriers that had once confined their expressions began to erode. Suddenly, they were not just a mentor and his students. They were a network of souls intertwined by shared human experience. Each confession empowered the other, igniting sparks of courage amid the rawness. I think this is how we grow, Jake continued, emotion pooling in his throat. By acknowledging our fears and the pressures we face, we connect more authentically. With each word, he realized that true mentorship lay not in imparting wisdom, but in walking alongside others through their struggles. As the session came to a close, the students turned to Jake with gratitude in their eyes. A tangible transformation had taken hold, and with it, Jake felt an immense weight lift off his shoulders. No longer bounded solely by his father's expectations or the shadow of fear, he had found his own voice, a voice that could echo truthfully through the stories of others. Weeks later, Jake stood at the front of a gallery showcasing his students' works, each piece a testament to their courage. Their artistic expressions reflected not just their unique identities, but also the bonds they had forged. He looked around, taking in the sight of proud parents and family members whose expectations now felt different. Behind every piece is a story. Jake spoke into the microphone, his voice steady and firm. These artists have faced their fears, unearthing parts of themselves that they had once tucked away. The journey to understanding oneself is the greatest work of art. The applause that followed was not just for their creations. It was a tribute to the collective journey they had undergone together. Confidence radiated from them like sunlight on a summer day. Jake stood there, fulfilled, realizing his own fears had transformed into a foundation of strength. In that moment, Jake recognized his success was not defined by monetary measure or societal applause. It lay in the authentic connections he had nurtured and the impact he had made on the lives around him. He had become more than a mentor, he had become a beacon of change. A bridge into the world of vulnerable expression through art. As he stepped back into the crowd, enveloped by the warmth of their shared triumph, Pride swelled in his chest. He had carved a path of transformation not just for himself, but for those who had walked beside him. In these achievements, he discovered that vulnerability could inspire strength, and by owning his story, he had empowered others to do the same. Jake sat down later that evening, pulling out his notebook. As he began writing, he reflected, moving forward requires embracing both fear and joy. Our stories and vulnerabilities unite us. This is only the beginning. With unshakable confidence, he scribbled the date today marked the solidified point of change. A moment where art facilitated healing and self-discovery, and finally, his true self had emerged. You need to subscribe now to follow more compelling stories of personal transformation and growth. Hit that bell icon to ensure you don't miss any future revelations. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and let others discover these emotional journeys. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Let us ignite a conversation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heartfelt and inspiring journey. Don't wait even one more second to spread the word. Your support helps these stories reach those who need them most.